This slideshow accompanies an exhibit in the lobby of the Old Dominion University Perry Library and a digital collection available from the ODU Library's website. "50 years ago, on September 29, 1958, 6 all-white public schools in the largest school system in Virginia were closed by order of the governor. His letter states that Granby, Maury, and Norview High Schools and Blair, Northside, and Norview Junior High Schools in Norfolk are closed and are removed from the public school system effective September 29, 1958. On page 2 of the letter, he states that he will thereupon assume all power and control over such schools. The state of Virginia, like many southern states, had been battling the Supreme Court's ruling in the 1954 Brown v. Board of Education case that segregated schools were unconstitutional. Virginia perceived this ruling as a violation of states' rights and embarked on a program of massive resistance, referring to a series of legislative enactments designed to defend Virginia's public school system from integration. One defense required that any public school with both black and white students be closed. Primary source materials in the special collections of Old Dominion University libraries can be used to tell much of the story that involved more than 4 years of school board meetings, private group meetings, court cases, and political maneuvering that took place not only in Norfolk but throughout the state in reaction to the Brown v. Board case. Collections with materials on school desegregation and massive resistance include the papers of A.E.S. Stevens, who was Lieutenant Governor of Virginia at the time; the papers of Paul T. Schweitzer, who was chairman of the Norfolk School Board. Forrest P. White was founding member of the Norfolk Committee for Public Schools. Archie L. Boswell was one of the attorneys in 2 cases to reopen the schools. The Women's Council for Interracial Cooperation was a group established by black and white women to work for improvements in education, health, and housing for the African American community. Henry Howell ran for the House of Delegates in 1959, an election in which the issue of massive resistance played a key role. The Oral Histories collection contains several interviews dealing with school desegregation. And the newly acquired Norfolk Public Schools Desegregation Papers contains over 30,000 pages covering the school closings to the end of busing in the mid-1980s. Over 3,000 pages from these collections have already been digitized and are available to the public via a website. Many more items will be added to the website, primarily from the Norfolk Public Schools Desegregation Papers. The digital collection includes a timeline of events that occurred after the Brown v. Board ruling, a list of resources for further study, a teacher page which includes SOL connections and ideas for lesson plans, and a mechanism to search the entire database of documents for ease of research. Also included in the digital collection is a tribute to the 17 courageous African American children who bravely entered 6 all-white public schools on February 2, 1959. They endured physical and emotional hardship for the sake of integration. While the collections at ODU primarily represent the reactions of the white community in Norfolk, more materials are becoming available to represent all viewpoints. Members of the Norfolk 17 are writing memoirs and being interviewed by the press so that their stories will be remembered. There are many types of documents represented in these collections. All of the collections include letters, whether from concerned citizens or from governors. Governor Almond's letter was a reply to a letter from the Norfolk School Board on September 27, 1958, announcing its resolution to admit the 17 students. Another important letter was that sent to the parents of the Norfolk 17, admitting them to the school but telling them not to report because the schools would be closed. Resolutions, especially those of the Norfolk City School Board, are primarily in the Norfolk Public Schools Desegregation Papers and the papers of Paul T. Schweitzer. On August 18, 1958, the school board submitted this three-page resolution rejecting the applications of all 151 African American children applying to enter previously all-white schools. The applicants and their parents had been put through a series of tests to judge their fitness for the school change. They were given strict instructions about interviews that were part of their application process. A 4-page form was developed to collect information about the children and their parents. Those conducting the interviews were given a list of suggestions to use in the selection or deselection process. Legal documents are primarily from the collection of Archie L. Boswell, who was the attorney representing Ruth Pendleton James et al. In the case against Governor Allman to open the schools and the case against Mayor Duckworth to prevent closing all schools above the 6th grade. One example is a court order in a 1958 continuation of the first lawsuit filed by the NAACP in 1956 in Southampton Roads. Leola Beckett versus the School Board of Norfolk came about after 233 Negro citizens petitioned the Norfolk School Board to comply with the Supreme Court decision. In this court order of 1958, Federal District Court Judge Walter E. Hoffman denied further delay in admitting the 17 students and approved the school board's denial of the additional 134 applications. You will find hundreds of news clippings in our collections. The majority are from the Virginian Pilot, whose editor was Lenore Chambers, a Pulitzer Prize winner for his coverage of the desegregation crisis. Here are some samples. Many pamphlets, leaflets, flyers, and advertisements are also available in the collections. Among them is a 32-page booklet in the collection of the Women's Council for Interracial Cooperation delineating the history of the desegregation crisis in Norfolk. Also available are government reports. Here is a copy of the 18-page Gray Commission report, which began the legislative process to stop integration in 1955. It called for tuition grants, a pupil assignment plan, and desegregation as a state or local option, among other recommendations. As stated in the report, the Commission believes that separate facilities in our public schools are in the best interest of both races, educationally and otherwise, and that compulsory integration should be resisted by all proper means in our power. Finally, several oral histories in the ODU Oral History Collection deal with the school desegregation issue. Audio and transcripts are available for these interviews. An interview with Vivian Carter Mason, founding member of the Women's Council for Interracial Cooperation, discusses civil rights in Norfolk, the establishment of the WCIC, the desegregation crisis, and the experiences of African Americans. For information about the exhibit or the digital collection, contact Karen Vaughn. If you're interested in viewing the original documents, contact Sonia Yako or call the ODU Library's Special Collections Department.